And two, I saw these videos, you see them all the time, and there's a lot of firsts on 9/11. I saw one yesterday that I hadn't seen before, and they were inside of WTC 5, and in the middle, a roof not collapsed over it, and then a whole floor gone from under it. And the guy's talking, he's like, "No, this is the first time this has ever happened." It was the guy recording inside. Don't know if the audio is the real audio, but he's like, "No, they never fail like this. It never fails where there's a roof on top. This is the first time that it happens," and that the first time comes up so much when you're looking into 9/11 work, like, and to
Oh
people,
yeah.
they'll just be like, okay, coincidence, 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 coincidence. Then you get stacked up, and I mean, things like the Alaskan magnetometer data. How do you even make sense of that if you haven't studied all the evidence? And then if you have studied all the evidence and you look at it, you can't say that that's coincidence. There's no possible way that the odds in that all being coincidence on this day is like, I can't even picture the number. It's greater than you could ever calculate.
That said, I mean, it is very difficult for people to deal with because it's just, as we may have covered last time, it's off the radar screen for most people. They just don't know what they're looking at. They can see these anomalies, but and this is why the book is Where Did the Towers Go book is kind of almost required reading, really, because that helps you piece it all together. And the cost of that, it's like $40 compared to 15 million, so it's a bargain, really.
Well, I actually feel so confident in the book that I told somebody that I'd been talking to through Reddit there, and I don't think he had the book yet. And I said, listen, I said it many times in the thing, so it was clear. I said, buy this book, study it, and if you can articulate why it's wrong or why you feel you waste your time or money, I will buy that book off of you. And then I'll buy it off of him, tell him to ship it to someone else or something like that. But that's how confident
Right.
that I feel that I don't know how they would refute me. You can't refute evidence. I mean, you can't call it theory because that'd be incorrect use of the word. Conspiracy theory
That's
is the
right.
9/11 Commission. It deals with the conspiracy and it has a theory. Where did the towers go does not. It has a few conclusions based on what you can rule out and based on the evidence seen at the site, but those aren't theories. Theories are something that I just don't know. People, it sounds like they're just comfortable in using whatever word comes to mind. In theory happens to be it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the way that the language has been framed for them, up to this point. So yeah.
They want the end result too. They don't want to know what happened because either it's too horrible for them to think about, but they just want who did it, why they did it, and I could sleep at night. And that's not going to get anyone anywhere, especially if they want a new investigation. Saying a new investigation is thermite, starting there is not a great way to start an investigation. So I guess this kind of ties into it too. This next part is about, I often see in the 9/11 truther community, they refer to the hotspot map, the NASA airborne visible infrared imaging spectrometer. It was AVIRIS, and I actually looked into it myself, and I was rather surprised because they tell you on this page on this pubs.ugs or usgs.gov. I won't read out the whole URL, but they tell you exactly what goes on there. They're interpreting data. They said that they're interpreting infrared data to mean heat. Well, they didn't even say to mean heat. They just say they interpret infrared data. So any infrared signals coming off of the ground where they're scanning. By the way, they have this camera system, and it takes 224 individual scans of an area and does that so many times. And it's from a plane. Most people think it's from a satellite, or at least that's the way it's come across to me. Some people go, haven't you seen the satellite image? No, it's actually from a plane. And its job was to gather data, and one of the functions of it was to gather infrared data, and infrared data doesn't necessarily mean heat. And a great example of that is we didn't have steam explosions. People were walking above those, and as far as I know, that was surface temperature that they're trying to claim is 1400 degrees. An overhead picture could easily see 1400 degrees. You'd be able, and that just wasn't apparent on the site. So little things like that, people cling on to this map and thing. And it's funny because the truther community often quotes this, and they're the first one to dispel government information, and this is right from a government source. So literally, by their own logic, it could have been faked and given to them. And but yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I think you've covered most of the points there, Mike, and a few that I wasn't aware of. Certainly, that's great that you've gone to that level of detail in studying that image, because it has been the sort of their trump card, as it were.
Temperatures.
They think is a trump card to say, oh yeah, this proves there was this heat there in the in the basements of the towers. This is where all the molten metal was. This is this is the, forensic proof of that, and of course it's no such thing, because that's like, I think there's maybe, how many pictures are there? Is there one or two? I don't think there's any more than two sort of graphs of that. And as you say, it's an interpretive sort of set of data, and we've suggested that whatever it is, whatever imaging system is being used, is maybe picking up an infrared signal, but it's not necessarily being generated from the heat in the ground. It could be at a higher level in the air, or it could be some other process which is causing the sensor to be triggered, but it's not the normal process, by which it would be triggered. There's something else happening as well, which is not understood, because that would, we know that the other processes that were going on at the World Trade Center are certainly not understood in the white world, and that's much of the cover-up has been to prevent people even talking about those processes, such as those in the Hutchinson effect, and this degradation of materials, molecular dissociation, and several other bits of description we could bring in based on what evidence has been gathered. So, the thermal image, what is it really showing? I mean, based on that, we don't really know, and certainly it's not showing heat in the normal sense, because we have pictures from the basements where that heat is alleged to have been, and I can't remember whether they're claiming it's like thousands of degrees.
1,400, I think, was the top. It was 700 to 1,400, and
700. Okay.
As far as we know, that's surface temperature, because the picture showing us, it doesn't say that that's underground. It just says this is the picture, this is the thermal. And another thing too, people don't realize, that I didn't even realize, is you need a ground calibration too. Somebody was on the ground at each of those sites calibrating it. So that's just another factor that might lead into a mishap, because what if his calibration's off? It's not as easy as flying this plane over and it tells you, boom, temperature, go. They had to get all this data back. They said they recorded up to 75 terabytes a day, I believe it was, in this plane. And this is older technology too. Brought it back, interpreted the data, then released it. They did rush the hotspot thing to get it out to the ground zero workers, but even then they said, this one was taken on the 16th with all the hotspots that's really quoted, and then the 23rd it looks like nothing's there, but yet fires burned underground 99 days, they were saying. Just nothing adds up, so you can't say that this is heat, especially when you take it to that next level and look at how this thing is conducted.
Well, that's very interesting. Again, you studied that more in depth than I have, certainly, and that's very interesting to know. So that's useful information to me. So yeah, I mean, there's those things right there that you've said. I don't really feel I can add much over and above what I've already said. That's that's going to be of any additional sort of to augment that, because you raise several key points, and those are ones that people should be paying attention to.
It's of great value to them too, not only to hear that information I gave out, but to say, hey, he did this, I can do this. So don't stop at that. If somebody gives you that picture of something, find out where that picture is from, find out how it was made, find out how it was compiled, and then find out who compiled it. Like, you'd never contact people. He never got back to me, but I actually had emailed probably months and months ago Dr. Sean Ahern. He was in charge of getting the LiDAR data, because I have access to a 3D printer. I wanted to see if I could get the LiDAR data, import it in, and then 3D print a composite of what was left at the site, and then print a real one and have it a visual, like 3D printed model there. And I never got, university professor, he's a doctor, so he's probably busy and stuff, like not medical doctor, but whatever he's in. And but no, he never got back to me. Not like I really expect everyone that contact get back to me, but you can't just stop at taking somebody's word for it. Dr. Wood's book, that's what I tell everybody. It's not, don't read this, don't let it be the end. That's a resource. That's an excellent resource to conduct your own research. The greatest things that I found from Dr. Wood's book was taking those official government links to each photo, then chopping off the end and getting the parent folder, and then just browsing in the parent folder, because you'll find collections and collections that you can't really find under Google Images or anything. They haven't been archived in that way, and they haven't appeared on websites. I mean, just for that way alone, I've found pictures of people getting their boots hosed off, washing dogs' feet, taping their boots up, duct tape all over boots, and that just deals with the the steel toe disintegration or whatever they're saying without the burnt feet. Little things like that, bent beams.
Yeah, that's great.
Everyone out there can do the research, but having Dr. Wood's book is going to be easy. That's like doing an English paper without a thesaurus or without a dictionary. You know, you need one of those around to have as a reference. So if you have any questions, you get your feet wet with Dr. Wood's work. You'll learn more than like you'd ever learn anywhere else, first off. But you get your feet wet there, then take the work, make it your own, do your own work, so that at the end of the day, we could remove Dr. Wood from this. And not trying to take the praise away from her or anything, but this is all standalone stuff. Anybody at any time, anywhere could get these results. She's just kind of the one that was showing us this all.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, that's great, Mike, that you've gone to that level of detail, and it's very important to do that. And then, because if you find anything which contradicts the overall argument and the overall conclusions, then that's how it is.
Well, you always find stuff like the other day. It took them we didn't think that they reported on Hurricane Aaron, but they did. Just took them 13 years, right? I found that article the other day. I linked you to, and 13 years later, there was a casual mention, and that's great because now it's in the public domain. If anyone says, "Hey, they didn't report on it," they could be like, "Well, haven't you seen this article?" Actually, I've found two after, and that just goes to show you that you could look and you'll find stuff like that other people haven't found yet.
Absolutely, and you'll find either you're going to find that it confirms what is in the original set of evidence, or it refutes it. Both are valuable, of course, because in each case you're going to better your understanding of what actually went on. But the basis behind what's in Dr. Wood's book has not been refuted. And so that's been certainly from a personal, sort of perspective, that's been my overall driving force, in that what's in that is still, it's stood the test of time, because, it's solid, it's true basically, and it's not going to stop being true just because somebody on the internet said it's not true. Just because the mainstream media ignores it, it's not going to make it untrue.
Absolutely. So that kind of brings us on to another major thing. If people listen, they would have heard, I mentioned it in the last one with Dr. Reynolds, I mentioned it with you, the Richard Gage Ask Me Anything on Reddit. So I was back home for the break, and I was telling my brother about it. I'm like, he didn't look, he made himself kind of look like an ass. He didn't he just quoted from his website. He went over here and so I went to go load it up, and all of a sudden I see imposter, fake under the search results. I'm like, what? So I discover right there that allegedly, that was a fake Richard Gage imposter that had went onto the boards. And I could read the backstory in a second. I just want to give an overview. And I guess answered almost like Richard Gage would. It was amazing to me, because when I heard this, I was like, because I'd read his answers to other people's questions and mine, and it was worded how he would word them. He said things that I've heard him say before. It was like, wow, if this was a fake, why would the imposter try and get that close to the real thing? And two, before I get into it and reading anymore, is this the first you've heard of any 9/11 imposters, or people trying to give fake interviews or passing them off as something? I haven't heard of it before.
Not in that way. I mean, I can think of a sort of example, but it's really different to what you've just been saying, and this is where I'll only mention it because it's sort of, it is the closest I can think of to an impersonator, even though it was obvious that it wasn't an impersonator. It was where this Lorraine Murray character had this radio program with Alfred Weber, and she'd gone through this list of evidence on Dr. Judy Wood's website at the time. This was before the book came out, and said, so it was Dr. Wood's study that convinced me that HAARP was used to destroy the World Trade Center. And she went through all the sort of, toasted cars and everything. And then I think it was about a year later or something, or 6 months later, there was some caller who called into an interview with Dr. Wood on, some other future program, and said, I thought you said it was HAARP that destroyed the World Trade Center. I says, no, I've never said that. That was somebody doing an impersonation of me. Mm-hmm. But of course, Lorraine Murray wasn't, wasn't using the name Dr. Judy Wood. She was using her own name, and it was just this caller had got confused about, because Lorraine Murray was also, obviously female. I think she just got confused because of that.